Uh, uh, Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Possibilities. I'm your host, Danny Steeves, and I'm very happy to have uh, my guest co-host for the evening, John Hilton. Um, John has been a friend of mine for like going on, uh, we'll just say a number of years, and we
Yeah, that
really,
works.
we really enjoy our, our conversations uh, on the topic of disability. So we thought, why not do an episode for you all? So, um, welcome, welcome to Possibilities. First of all, John,
Thank you, sir. It's wonderful to be here.
um,
Longtime viewer.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, thanks for being here tonight. Um, I thought we might start off by doing a bit of an overview on yourself, and then we'll get in into some topics that you and I have um on our mind. So um, first of all, though, how did you get in the disability field, and that will bring us into our first topic for tonight. So, turn it over to you.
Okay. I was a very bored teenager living in St. Catharines, and I was staring down the face of a summer with very little to do. So, my sister, who worked for community living in St. Catharines, this was before community living. It went by a different, more not good name. Um, I decided I would work at a summer day camp.
Yeah,
And I went the first day and I met everybody. Folks were very, very nice, good to
yeah,
me.
yeah,
So I thought I would come back. And then I ended up doing full time that summer, volunteer,
yeah. And,
and had a lot of fun. Kind of
uh,
stuck with me.
yeah. And go, uh, uh, going into that summer, did you ever think you would do this as a career, or did you think one summer and that's it? Like, yeah,
No, I had no idea that a career was a thing. Um, to me, it was just going and helping out and meeting new folks and doing some fun things. But it didn't seem like any kind of work prospect would be coming through that. It just seemed like a fun thing to do, which I suppose is the best work prospect.
yeah. So, um, when, um, when, when did you realize, okay, this is what I was born to do, sort of speak. So, yeah,
I I began working full time in St. Catharines around 1990.
yeah,
The camp business and stuff that was back in 86. but it was 1990 that I was hired on as regular staff. Um, I was working relief, which meant that I was filling in for regular staff.
Right.
And I think St. Catharines at that time had about, I don't know, I want to say 16, 17 different residential sites.
Yeah.
And as relief, I got to work at most of them. So each site kind of geared towards certain needs. It could have been ranging from high medical to maybe somebody really had an affinity for music
Yeah.
and had some housemates that liked
Yeah.
music as well.
Yeah.
That
So
kind of,
yeah. So uh, but um, going in there, you would just like you would just sort of do do doing it for the summer, and then you thought, oh, I'll just do this for a little while, and then I'll switch to something else. Is that how that works?
it was again, I think it was my sister, because she had pursued a career through that as a starting place
Yeah,
and began doing some teaching and stuff. I had been working at the museum in St. Catharines, but it was temporary and I needed to find work. And then I remembered back to, hey, that was fun when I was working at the camp. My sisters, well, you should apply and stuff. So I applied,
yeah.
had an interview, didn't really know too much about the residential scene before that.
And yeah, and and then where did you go from there?
I worked all those different sites in residential for about 10 or 12 years.
Right?
And the majority of that being one particular work site for, I don't know, the last little bit of it. High medical needs, great staff, good place to work, and learned a ton of skills that I probably never would have picked up anywhere else.
Yeah. Um.
Um,
Yeah. Um. Like what? Without getting too personal, because we don't want to. Uh, we we want to um think of confidentiality here, but
of course.
what kind of things what kind of things did you encounter when you were working there?
There were five individuals living in one house,
Yeah,
very high physical needs. Um, I started learning about the lifts. I started learning about seizures. I'm not sure I understand. And my watch is talking to me. Weird. Um, Dipping into the medical end, there's even things that you couldn't do now. I remember packing wounds,
yeah,
which would which would be a nurse job these days,
yeah,
but packing wounds due to pressure sores and things that developed.
mm,
Um, Different behavioral needs leading to
yeah,
different behavioral strategies and different behavioral interventions to help folks manage their day to day a little bit better.
yeah. So um, like you, um, you, you and I have caught off camera. Um, a little bit. Well, we're friends, so we talk all the time. And and you told me on numerous occasions that you kind of work in in a institution
Hmm.
uh kind of setting. So
Yes.
can you share a little bit about that? And yeah, just
Yeah,
yeah,
it was it was an institutional setting, but it was on a small scale.
yeah,
It was a building that had, I think, maybe 4 or 5 different wings to the buildings, and we called them pods.
yeah,
I don't know why, but certain pods had certain different needs, different staff, sometimes different rules governing what goes on there. To describe it, it was, a brown brick 1 floor building with a central cafeteria and then like a games area. And the pods or the wings kind of branched out almost like a starfish.
uh,
Um, yeah. And so, for dinner time, everybody from the pods would sort of gather in the main area. Um, if there was music night, if there was a party, those sort of things.
yeah,
But it wasn't a place that I felt great about.
no,
Um, it certainly didn't have a home type of atmosphere to it. It had those, almost granite floors, the cold stone feeling floors.
yeah,
And I saw some people walking around without their shoes, people that were really struggling to get any type of quality human contact. I remember one fellow in a wheelchair, every time I'd be walking past down the hall, he'd be reaching out for me and trying to get my attention. And I had so many different places to go. Everybody would stop and try and give a little bit where we
yeah,
had time and where we
yeah,
could,
yeah,
try and squeeze in a quality 3 minutes or something. But it wasn't home. It wasn't community. It
yeah,
was secluded.
yeah,
If we went out somewhere, everybody in the van kind of thing. Um, and a pretty big cross section. But I guess the thing that struck me the most was I could feel a lot of loneliness there.
yeah. And and um, I won't again. I won't make you describe some of the things that you saw there because I can just imagine what and I can hear in your voice that it makes you a little bit sad, but uh, um uh, just in your line of work now, what what has changed, um, or what hasn't? First of all, let's go through what has changed to get away from the institutional feel, and then we'll do the opposite end of the curriculum in a moment. So, what has changed, first of all, to get away from it? institutional feel.
So much has changed.
Yeah,
It's night and day.
yeah,
In the early 90s, we were really swimming in the deep end with deinstitutionalizing. It had been pretty well established that the institutions were not great places to be, and taking a whole group of people and hiding them away from everybody really wasn't a great way to have everybody live their lives either. So I was happy to take part in buying a residence in St. Catharines, a very nice home, 2-story with finished basement, jacuzzi, in a beautiful neighborhood. It was a brand new, newly minted subdivision. And we started looking for people to live in the house, trying to find people that would get along with each other, might enjoy each other's company. But I mean, there's a kitchen, there's a bathroom, you have your own bedroom, and some degree of privacy. The smell of home cooked meals at dinner and the choices of what we can have for dinner, which wasn't really there before. Um, let's see what else. Mostly the community element, getting people away from being in a building, getting them out to a job, getting them out to see friends, family, and not just we're going on an outing, trying to have a little bit of quality time. There was one lady that I worked with, and she left a very big impression on me. Uh, she was she was in her 50s. She had vision loss. She had oxygen deprivation when she was a child, and that caused some brain damage. The doctors all told her mother, as we've all heard, well, this child isn't going to have a normal life, and the best thing that you can do is to send that child somewhere where there's doctors and people that can properly care for her needs. Um, but partly because of the injury and because there wasn't very much else going on, she kind of stayed that 4 or 5 year old type child. And one of the most exciting things that I got to do with her, she had to be sedated to bring her out of the institution and drive her to the group home. The seat belts in the vehicle, she felt like those were restraining devices. So that will give you a little bit of an idea of what she might have gone through. Um, Lots of different dialectic language, alternative language. That wasn't too hard for me to pick up. Other people had some difficulty with it. Um, but we ended up getting her out for her very first summer trip to Wasaga Beach. And that was quite an experience. It was a person who was so afraid to even get into a van. It took me about a year to get her comfortable with just sitting in the van in the driveway. And we'd bring out a cup of tea and some puzzles and different things like that, things that would take her attention away and get her mind off of stuff. Um, so, yeah, we She was out of the institution for maybe 3 or 4 years before she passed. And in that 3 or 4 years, I would like to think she got a very good taste of community, the different people in the neighborhood, the different people that she would see from programs and such. Um, Not being as regimented, you can get up when you're awake, that kind of thing. Um, I don't know. It was a person who came into service and had a very challenging time, but within a few years, she was happy. And that kind of thing stuck with me, fueled me for years and years and years, and trying to make sure that those kind of things happen to as many people as I could possibly be involved with. I cannot hear you.
Oh, I was on mute. Yeah. Um,
Hello.
I I know from speaking to you um before that skill that skill um that kind of experience that you were just describing, it still feels feels you and gives you the drive to do the work that you're doing today. So it never really went away, did it?
It didn't. And the more people I met, it just
Yeah,
got bigger and
yeah,
bigger.
yeah. Um,
So no,
yeah,
it's never left me.
yeah. Um, and I don't think it ever, ever will. Um, um. Okay, so going off of that because um, what um, what kind of all over the place tonight, but whatever, who cares? Um, um, but uh, going off of that, um, from there you went to community living or within a few years of that. Didn't you? Didn't you? So can you share a little bit about your experience about community living?
Well, yeah, I guess I've worked over the years, two primary community livings, one St. Catharines,
Yeah,
another one in Kincardine.
yeah,
I have worked maybe four, 4 to 5 other community livings on part-time or temporary basis. Um, just kind of zooming in and doing my thing, making a little bit of
yeah,
change, making things
yeah,
a bit better, and then back to my main thing. So there's a community living generally in any larger towns.
yeah,
Some of them are branches of the bigger town around them, but they're everywhere in Canada anyway. It's an organization I believe in and have been with for now 35 years plus.
uh,
But there is a bit of a difference between them.
yeah,
Um, so a couple of things that maybe come to mind is a community living in an urban setting could be very challenging because in a city, there isn't necessarily that connection to everybody around.
yeah,
Most people are strangers.
yeah,
And starting from, well, I guess the starting block isn't necessarily as easy as in a small town where you all know each other, you all grew up together, went to school together.
yeah,
My uncle is your doctor or whatever it would be.
yeah,
It's so much easier to build connections in a small town than it was in the city, I found, anyhow.
yeah,
Um, then there is how they're run. They're all run generally by a different team, almost like franchises.
yeah.
And you can have a good franchise that is strong, and you can have a franchise that is maybe held together with coat hangers.
Not, not to throw, not to throw anybody under the bus here,
No.
but but you and I have talked a bit off camera, and we both have our opinions on on community 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 living as a organ organ organization. So,
Mhm.
uh, can would would you feel comfortable sharing where you where you think commu- community living as a brand where they went wrong and how they can do better?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Well, I think the way they came in,
yeah,
they came in with a set of values and principles that they have stuck with generally over the years.
sure,
Uh, Good values, good principles.
yeah,
However, when the rubber hits the road, any agency is only as strong as the staff that is employed by it and the policies and protocols that management use to govern.
yeah,
Um, so, some things that I saw early on, I would see people that were in crisis, and the terms were, oh, they're having behaviors, but it's a person in crisis. They're having an awful hard time, and they're trying to communicate something with you. And it could be that they're trashing a room, or they just keep repeating a certain word. And you kind of have to be a bit of a detective and see, what's the underlying message. Or the favorite one I've got is, what's the function of this behavior? But that wasn't really what we did back in those days. In those days, we had a protocol.
sure,
And if somebody were to maybe show 4 out of 5 of this list of behaviors,
yeah.
then it would be time to give them a PRN, which is a medication
Medication, yeah,
to help somebody calm down.
yeah,
Um, and it could be sedating or something like that. I mean, the terms, and it all depended on the medication and the person, but for all intents and purposes, maybe we could say chemical restraint.
yeah,
Um, and that kind of drove me nuts, because that list of 5 things was alterable, and
yeah,
it was interpreting what
yeah,
those things are.
and,
And so a lot of
and
people would take it as this is those five things. But what is this person trying to communicate? And if I did my job, if I did my detective work in looking at how this individual is presenting, what is their tone, what is their body positioning, if
yeah,
they weren't able to tell me what was going wrong, was I able to figure it out? And
yeah,
most of the time I was. And you would start to see, certain staff would be coming in and they'd be giving out PRNs frequently.
yeah,
And you can imagine quality of life goes down as you're less and less able to be, boom, out there. Um,
so,
you know?
yeah, yeah,
And when I was working and other staff members that I worked with that were good and interpreted these things, we could see from our medication administering charts, you know, the use of these PRNs were getting less and less as we were learning more and more about
yeah,
what the individuals were trying to convey. And there
yeah,
were very, very different ways for them to communicate.
yeah,
Some people have an easy time trying to pick that out, and other people don't always see something for the deeper.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so, um, did, did, um, speaking broadly, I know you work for several community livings, and we, you all, you all, you, you get things your way, but do you think community living generally got away from that as time went on, or do you think they're still in the same uh bucket, bucket so to speak? Yeah,
No, I feel a couple of different things now that I've got a bit of distance. I think that community living, deinstitutionalizing community living, community reentry or entry for some people, those were necessary first steps. You have to
yeah,
start somewhere, and that's where we started. Um, the things that we did after that, you're kind of, I don't, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that great big pyramid of what does everybody need, starting off with you need food and water, and you kind of work your way up. Um, we tried to work through as many different things, as many different aspects of
yeah,
life as we could to help people either cope or experience new things. But we didn't really ask people as much as we should have
yeah,
back in the old days. And if somebody said, I want to get a drum set, for instance, it may be that they want to play drums.
mm,
Staff might walk up and say, oh, you're interested in this drum set. Would you like to take drum lessons? Nope. Nope. Don't want to take drum lessons. Well, you can't go out and spend $2,000 on a drum set and you don't even know how to play them.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, he wants them for some other reason.
yeah,
And if you don't know what that is, it's okay.
yeah,
You just have to know how important it is to that person. Um, where I think things kind of went a little bit off the rails, there is always going to be a need for some type of group living situation, although that gets less and less, and some people like it more and more. It depends on your situation. But when we started getting finding employers that would hire, started getting into the job field, when integrated classrooms started coming in, these kids had grown up in a regular classroom with regular kids. Um, Maybe some of the things that we were doing as a community living, maybe that was already done for us through the socialization that the kids were getting at school. And maybe, breaking past 2000 and the 2010s, maybe there was another step.
What what was what what is or what was that what is or what was that other step that you're referring to?
Well, I think some of the programs we could have probably done away with. The programs could be how to get along with people on the job,
Yeah,
just off the top of my head.
yeah, yeah,
And you can teach that to a degree,
yeah,
but it's better to teach at work,
yeah,
right? A lot of people are hands-on kinesthetic learners.
yeah,
I can sit down and teach working at KFC or something,
yeah,
or Tim Hortons is usually the go-to that people
yeah,
start talking about.
yeah,
Um, I can teach you those things, but if you go to work, you will experience those things, and there's a vast riff of difference between being taught about, say, Japan or going to Japan.
yeah, yeah,
And then the other element, this is one that always, stuck in the back of the head,
yeah,
is that line of rational detachment between an individual receiving support and their caregiver. It had always been very strongly kind of hammered in that we are a service provider, um, that we don't give out our phone numbers, we don't bring people over to our houses to meet our families, those kind of things. And I understand those, and there are some very good reasons for that.
yeah,
Um, but the other thing is, you can't teach without a relationship.
yeah,
And if there's no reciprocity, if I'm constantly coming in and asking, what are your favorite things? And what would you like to do
yeah,
on Sunday? And you have no idea what kind of person I am, that's a little anxiety
yeah,
provoking.
yeah,
Um, the reciprocity is something that I hope
yeah,
begins to change,
yeah,
because I think that's the key to community.
yeah. Great, great point there. And that is a great segue into um our our last two um topics for the evening. What what because I know you have your opinions on both of these topics, but, but let's start with the smallest one and then we'll end with the biggest one.
Oh, we got a zinger.
So, yeah, so what has, what is your, is, what is your disabilities.
Critical,
Yeah,
absolutely critical.
yeah,
The what you get out of a job is, I mean, we all know when we're kids and we're in public school, we can make friends because we're surrounded by people that are our age. Once you're no longer in school, where are your people?
yeah,
Well, most people, their people are at work. Um, in Ontario, we have the Ontario Disability Support Program, ODSP. It historically does not support people very well financially. Um, Poverty line is pretty much where people are, and you need, especially these days, you really do need to have an extra income, if not for the money and to pay your bills, but for your self-esteem,
yeah,
for your mental health, to be out of the house. We all know through the pandemic how hard it was to stay in our houses,
yeah,
but understanding that there are people that
yeah,
still are in their houses,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
A job brings the world. It inspires, it accommodates, it gives you a sense of who you are by seeing how you are with other people and how they are with
yeah,
you.
yeah. Um,
It's absolutely critical. And when I had been working in employment services and starting up a new program at the last community living I worked at, it was one of the most rewarding programs that I had worked in.
yeah,
Um, to see somebody who was basically at home playing video games or something
yeah,
through most of the day and worried about people in general because they weren't around them very often. And they start working and the job takes off. And people are coming into where they work and, hey, how are you? And, oh, I didn't see you last week. And that kind of thing. You start to feel a sense of belonging. And
yeah.
that's critical.
So, um, you mentioned this before, and I want to bring it back here. So, you mentioned that disabled people typically get a job at Tim Hortons or McDonald's or what have you. Um, wh- first of all, why do you think that is? And yeah, why do you think that is? First of all,
Well, I know why it is for Tim Hortons in Ontario.
yeah,
There's a fellow named Mark Wafer,
yeah,
and he runs a lot of Tim Hortons franchises in the GTA.
yeah,
And he also works with Odin, the Ontario Disability Employment Network.
oh,
And he has made the case that hiring people with disabilities at his franchises brings up the culture of his franchises,
yeah,
that the people that are coming into work, it's not like a teenager who you train and 2 weeks later they're gone, they've moved on somewhere else.
yeah,
The people that we were helping get trained and get started,
yeah,
they stay. If everything is wonderful and the people are great, they're going to stay.
yeah,
So holding on to your employees, you're lowering costs by not having to train as many. You'll find people will really do whatever it takes to get into work.
yeah.
And
yeah.
and so that, I mean, that's for Tim Hortons. McDonald's has a pretty slick employment startup package. It's almost paint by numbers. They've got it all out, and it's brilliant. It really is
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
It's one of the very few packages, employment packages that I've seen that kind of covers everybody.
Yeah. Um.
Um,
Yeah.
so I had kind of thought, oh, McDonald's, like, well, what the heck? But it is kind of slick,
Cool.
and there is the ability to move up.
Yeah. What?
They're a very good employer, I've
Yeah.
seen.
What? Um. But again, and you already answered this, but what for people with disabilities? Um. What for parents with a a child with disabilities? What? Why? And again, I'm generalizing here, but why do you think parents think that Tim Hortons or McDonald's or what have you might be the best first option for my child with a disability, or am I wrong with assuming that they think that?
I think, in one area, there's not a lot of people that say
Yeah,
that they want to work at a McDonald's or they
yeah,
want to work at a Tim
yeah,
Hortons.
yeah,
And a lot of times those are sort of entry level
yeah, yeah,
positions.
yeah, yeah,
They're skill building positions.
yeah,
And so the reason they've got some turnover is because they have trained their staff, and their
yeah,
staff are now able to work elsewhere. Um, but the way things used to be was we would have people go around town with resumes,
yeah,
and we'd craft some wickedly good resumes.
yeah,
They would dazzle you. But I don't think, out of all the resumes for years and years that we handed out, I don't think we got one job.
right, yeah,
So what we had figured out, at my former place of employment, was that you have to know the town,
yeah,
right? It's that getting to know people
yeah,
thing again.
yeah,
You can't just drop in and please hire me. So instead of, we saw a job posting on Indeed, and we think Bill or Ted
yeah,
would have an excellent adventure at that job. Um, it's not really it's not really an effective way of running an employment program.
yeah,
The skills, the desires, um, different accommodations for different positions, different drive to do different things. We've got a cohort of people now that want to grow up and be influencers,
right.
right? So that's a whole other that's a whole other angle of things.
Because
But
of
I am tickled pink about it.
be, because of TikTok and YouTube and whatnot.
But
Um,
it gives
yeah,
a person a
yeah,
voice,
yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
Be heard, be out there.
And that's exactly why I'm doing, doing, um, not this particular episode, but that's why I'm doing possibilities in general because you're right, and this is, um, and you and I talked numerous times, off camera, um, the, um, we, we really need to see more voices with, of people with disabilities, right? So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
Things that we know. You go to a roller coaster and it looks terrifying. You go on the roller coaster a couple of times and it's not scary anymore.
yeah,
When we learn about something new, learning about it takes away some of the scariness.
yeah, and I agree, agree, and albeit I may not have the biggest audience, but I keep doing episodes because A, I want to, I enjoy doing them, and
Yeah.
B, I want to educate people about different disabilities. So that's why I keep doing it. And I think the more, and especially with the rise of TikTok, I think we'll see more and more um, disability cre- creators or what have you. So you're right, I think TikTok and social media has given um, people with disabilities a voice to express themselves. Yeah,
And not just express themselves, but to find community.
yeah,
So
yeah,
we had talked about this one fellow that I had met through a different group,
yeah,
and he does elevator
yeah,
videos.
yeah.
Well, who would have thought? Who would have thought that anybody would want to go on YouTube? Well, I wonder what the warehouse elevator looks like at the Hyatt Regency. But some people do want to know.
Yeah,
And so through him making the videos, because that's what he wants to do.
yeah,
He wants to make those videos. So you do what you want to do regardless of what other people are saying at
yeah,
you, and you follow your own true line.
yeah.
He has millions of subscribers now. And his video, he does elevator tours, and elevator companies give him products.
is, is he still making
He
uh
is.
yeah,
He is.
yeah,
Shout out to Andrew at Elevators.
yeah, yeah. Um uh okay, uh um our final um uh comment for tonight that will come in about 10 minutes or so on, or five, or however long it takes. Or, yeah, it's educational system. I, I saved the best for last, for
Oh
this,
yeah.
for this episode anyway, so, and I surely won't it all in this but maybe we'll have you back on the show again as a matter of fact that you can count count on it. But what to start things off, what is your view on the educational system?
It's a sham.
Yeah,
Um, the educational system is kind of a machine that wants to make everybody the same.
yeah,
It 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 does not encourage individuality, let's say.
yeah,
Um, parameters that everybody must learn the same. While we all know we don't all learn the same, but they keep hammering that nail.
yeah,
Um, the inability to navigate different ways of thinking, different neurology, and different ways to express yourself, that has been a huge problem.
yeah,
Um, just in speaking of autism, let's say,
yeah,
um, I mentioned earlier about dialectic speech,
yeah,
um, about people who would speak, they say something different
yeah,
than what everybody is interpreting. So I'm an autistic fellow. And if somebody is talking to me and I say, "Oh, how are you doing today?" "Oh, I'm pretty good."
yeah,
I am confused
yeah,
because the words that they said did not match what their body was doing.
yeah, yeah,
And my anxiety levels start to raise a little bit.
yeah,
But I'm a 50-year-old man
yeah, yeah,
and I'm kind of okay with all of that. Well, I'm totally okay with it. When I was a little kid, that was really hard though.
yeah,
And there was a tendency back then to punish the disability out. And it wasn't even necessarily limited to that. I mean, you could have been a person that was left-handed in the
yeah,
70s,
yeah,
and man, they would try and make you right-handed.
yeah,
They
and,
want to teach people the same, and they want outcomes to be the same. And that's why we've got standardized testing and different
yeah,
things like that, but they don't take into account the greater world of learning through other methods,
right, yeah,
right?
yeah, uh,
Um,
yeah, and I was just talking to somebody this morning, and um she said a few years ago her child was diagnosed with a learning disability, and and um she she had a really crappy teacher, um and her teacher said, well, your child is just um get, your child learns differently, and I'm not not able to change my teaching method or teaching style to match what what your child can do. So it's up to you. So what's your what's your opinion, John, when you hear that um story? Yeah,
No child left behind.
yeah,
That's the goal.
yeah,
Whether or not people are meeting that goal, and I've seen a great difference between one school to the next. On it does kind of come down to attitude, the willingness and ability to do some detective work. I had mentioned the different speech. So if a student walks up and says, "Don't touch that, it'll burn you," but she's not anywhere near anything hot, you think, why do they keep repeating that? And they keep saying it all day long.
yeah, uh,
So what would be the function of somebody saying that? So if somebody says, "Don't touch that, it'll burn you," that's something that somebody hears when they're in a startled, "Don't touch it, it'll burn you."
yeah,
You get startled, but then that is the script that you have in your head.
yeah.
You're walking around and telling people, "Don't touch that, it'll burn you." And they're not understanding that you're telling them that you're anxious.
If like if you tell like if you tell a child that you don't touch it, it will burn you. 9 times out of 10, they're gonna do what you know not to do. Yeah,
Yes. Um, but to some people, it could be a startle response.
yeah,
"Don't touch that, it'll burn you."
yeah,
Hey.
yeah,
But it's also in the things that we teach. So if we don't understand what somebody's thinking
yeah,
process is, we try and come out with different ways to make sense of it ourselves. And so I often see people that are using color codes
yeah,
to describe how they're feeling. Like, is today a red day or a yellow day? Or how would you describe how you're feeling, sort of thing. Sometimes they use numbers. Is a 1 day or a 2 day? That
yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
And they're
So,
really setting a person up
yeah,
by doing that. I mean, there was one fellow and he would walk around all day and it was a nice day and he'd be saying to himself, "Yellow, yellow, yellow.
yeah,
It's a nice day.
yeah,
Not a black day,"
yeah, yeah.
right?
So, yeah,
But
so,
if you key in and you start seeing how these things are going,
yeah,
you can see patterns.
yeah,
You
uh,
can
uh,
develop alternative communication that would maybe, I don't know about the circumstance, but maybe that teacher, if they had a better understanding of their student,
yeah,
the ability to teach them would come much more
yeah.
naturally. But that
So,
level of understanding might be missing.
so, not to get, not to get too, um, personal here, but, uh,
I've got nothing to hide from the interminets.
yeah, and I know that you have, uh, you're a father of, uh, uh of an individual with autism, autism. So, um, without saying too much, what has your experience been as a father with someone with challenges in the in the, the in the educational system just quickly and then we'll wrap it up.
It's been hard.
Yeah,
In the 70s, you weren't allowed to be different.
yeah,
And that was quite autism. Anything that I had that could have been traced back to autism back then was, soundly thrashed out of you.
yeah.
Um, these days, though, I think it still isn't that much better. Um, it has been difficult. The teachers that I have run across, 50% of them are doing a great job, and the other 50% of them need to have things done exactly the way that they need it done. And if your child isn't doing what they say to have done that way, very often they would say that you have a non compliant child,
Oh,
that your child isn't going to do what we tell them to do.
yeah,
Now, I'm totally fine with that.
yeah,
I don't want my kid to blindly follow requests from people that don't really have that much affiliation with them.
yeah,
But the schools are teaching that compliance is what you've got to have on the go.
yeah,
Um, there, the school that he's going to now is wonderful. He will report that he's happy there.
yeah,
That's good enough for me.
yeah,
The last school had a quiet room, which was a place where students would go when they're in crisis, but they kind of leave the person to be in the crisis by themselves.
yeah, yeah,
Well, and how's that going to make anything better?
like, yeah, that
Right?
was,
Um, I would get phone calls, please, Mr. Hilton, please bring your son home.
yeah,
He's having a terrible day at school today.
yeah,
And I would do some questioning of what was going on, kind of figured where the responsibility, and it wasn't usually with my son.
yeah,
Um, it came down to multiple different behaviors. The school telling me that they were going to start social skills training.
oh boy,
And and with everything that had gone on, with the multiple times a week that I would get called to pick my kid up from school,
yeah,
that puts a strain on my work too, although my work was very accommodating. Um, when they say that they're going to start doing social skills training, that's training to interact with other people. And if they can't interact with him on the level he's operating at, they can't teach him that.
oh,
And obviously, they're not very successful at what they're doing if I'm getting calls to pick up. And the contrast, the new school, I'm not getting those calls, and my son's happy.
so have you go,
So,
uh, um,
so I pulled him out of that school just based on they were going to start teaching him something that was going to turn out harmful.
uh, and, and um, you haven't got any of those calls since you pulled through. zero.
Zero.
Yeah,
Now, and on the really good side to it, it isn't the office calling me. If there's a problem at school, my son calls me.
yeah, yeah,
And, a few minutes talking with mom or dad
yeah,
can help settle things down a little bit. That was not always an option for him.
yeah, yeah,
And yeah, no, there hasn't been any come pick your son up calls.
yeah.
He's
Um,
happy with his teachers. He's got some classes that are integrated classes, some that are special needs, and some that are full credit classes.
yeah. Uh,
So
um,
teaching him to his strengths.
uh, the, and maybe this is a good question for the next time you're on, but just brief, briefly, um, what, what has, what, what is your opinion on the, um, in, integrational system in terms of, life skills and, um, non life skills? Uh, do you think they should have just, just gone away with them as quickly as they did, or do you think they did that way too quickly, if you know what I mean? Yeah,
Well, you know me, and my opinion is kind of out there sometimes.
yeah, yeah,
I think they're teaching them all the wrong stuff. Why teach them? Yes, history is important. And I'm a history lover. I love it.
yeah,
I taught myself history because I love it.
yeah.
I know more about history from what I've taught myself than what teachers have said at me. Um, where was I going with that?
In, integration,
Integration, yeah. Sometimes I get glitchy.
yeah,
Um, I think that you should be teaching life skills to all the kids.
yeah,
This business of this is special needs, well, not special needs are the same for all kids,
yeah,
right? Special circumstances, special teaching methods or considerations,
yeah,
but the needs, all the kids have the same needs.
yeah.
Now they're teaching him how to budget.
Uh,
Well, I've been through high school myself and I could have used that class. Home economics. What are those real world skills? And you tend to find those in either non-academic settings, where there's not a credit that a person's going to be getting.
yeah.
But honestly, like why isn't cooking class a thing?
It was back in my day.
But how do we rate which is important, right?
Yeah,
So is trigonometry more important than cooking?
no,
Not to me, it's not.
yeah,
I do an awful lot more cooking than I do trigonometry.
sure,
Thank
sure.
goodness.
Yeah,
Um, Not that trigonometry doesn't have its place.
yeah.
You teach the kids that are interested in learning trigonometry.
So,
What I think schools should be doing is teaching kids what they need.
yeah, so what I hear you saying is it keeps, we should have, uh, we should have a different teacher for math or a different teacher for whatever. We should have more. We should have just one teacher and the teach what the kids want to learn about. Is that what you're uh,
No,
saying?
I think variety is the spice of life.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
I think that having people with
yeah,
different teaching
yeah,
methods
yeah,
and having students with different learning skills,
yeah, yeah,
I think that all adds to the great tapestry of learning that happens.
yeah, yeah,
Um, because you could end up with a student that doesn't necessarily learn that well from that teacher.
yeah,
Um, I like having more teachers. I would like, if there was a drama teacher, you would want them to be a little dramatic,
yeah,
right? Maybe that dramatic teacher is not very well suited to trigonometry.
yeah,
I keep picking on the math people.
yeah, yeah. That wasn't my greatest subject either, so I
No, and
guess,
they kept telling me there was safety in numbers, but then, oh, my
yeah,
report cards did not indicate that.
yeah. Uh, um, all right, we're running a bit short on time here, so we're gonna have to save the rest of the topics for a future um round table. Um, so so, so I want to thank you for uh joining us here on Possibilities today, John. But before we go, what will be a final message to my audience to send us home with? Yeah,
Communication and understanding
yeah,
get you almost the whole distance.
uh, yeah, and um, how do we make people see that we need to communicate differently or whatever? Do you know what I mean?
I do, and for me, just me,
Yeah,
but for me, when I was diagnosed autistic,
yeah,
I kind of did a deep dive for a bunch of years and trying to realign kind of memories and different
yeah,
approaches that I take to that, and probably drove people crazy for it.
yeah,
Um, I think that communication has been one of the areas where I've probably had the most learning challenges with. Um,
how so?
because communication is reciprocal.
Yeah,
And what I see from people is not easily interpreted by me.
right,
If I'm in a room full of autistic people,
yeah,
oh, we're going to get along famously
yeah,
because I understand that method, that autistic method of
yeah,
communication.
yeah,
There's no lion in it, you know. There's it's very direct, and the hands match the mouth.
yeah, yeah,
No ambiguity, nothing like that.
yeah,
Learning those communication styles, even if you're not deaf, learn sign,
yeah,
and you may end up getting to know somebody that turns out to be very valuable in your life.
yeah, absolutely. So we we all communicate. We all communicate. We all communicate differently. So be open to that. Is that what I hear you saying?
Not just be open to it, embrace it.
Yeah.
Because
Well, yeah, yeah.
go ahead.
Embrace, embrace everybody's different. Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
100%.
yeah. All right. So, um, again, thank you for joining us here today. Um, I um, I'm sure we're we're gonna be back for more co- conversation in the future. So stay tuned, and I will be back with more episodes in the future. In the future, so stay tuned to this channel for more in the future. So thank you very much, John, for joining me here today. It's been a lot of fun.
It is always a lot of fun, sir.
So
I love it when we get together and yak.
thank you very much, and for right now, keep the dick out of disability. If you want to reach me here at the show, my email address is possibility possibilities show at gmail.com, and I'll be back next time with more episodes, and I- I'm sure you'll be hearing from John um, in future episodes. Now to the but for right now, we'll say goodnight and see you next time.
Thank you for having me, sir. It was an honor.
Yeah. Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.